is Mollen Mukuze, the Managing Director of Romeo Chartered Accountants. Today in this studio, I'm joined by Romeo Kariga, a legal expert, as well as a holder of MBA with gifts. And you also studied financial planning, right?
That's right.
Yes, welcome to Brainmore Business Hub.
Thank you, Mollen, for the warm welcome. I'm looking forward to the discussions today.
Thank you very much for coming. So, Romeo, as far as I know you, I know one of your hobby is studying, and one of the area of study that you are actually interested in is the study of economy as well as financial markets.
That's right.
Yes. So, now there's a huge talk, or people are talking more about recession. So I'm actually glad that I'm having you in the studio where we are going to talk about what is recession, because I know some people and many have gone into even predicting the collapse of the economy and the financial markets.
There's a notable people for that matter.
Yeah. So just to kick off, Romeo, what is recession?
Well, generally, a recession is a sustained period of economic decline in a country, which is accompanied with high unemployment. So experts and analysts, they've come up with a practical definition of a recession. And they say that a recession is a period where there are two consecutive declines, 2 quarters of decline in the country's GDP. So there's quarter one, there's a decline in the GDP, and then quarter two, there's a decline in the GDP. And generally, recessions, they cause the GDP to shrink by 2%. But if it shrinks by 5%, it will be a big recession. And when it's 10%, then it becomes a depression, like the one that happened in the US in 1929.
Okay, thanks for that, Romeo. So you mean the decline in GDP? Can you explain further what you mean by the decline in GDP? What is it?
So GDP is a general measure which actually calculates the value of all products and services that are produced within a country. So when that declines for 2 successive quarters, then we say that there's a recession.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for that, Romeo. So my next question would be, why? What causes recession?
So there are many reasons why recessions happen, but today I'm just going to talk about 3 of those. Economists are still researching more of the reasons why recessions actually take place.
Okay.
So the first one happened when there is an increase in the input price. So let's say there's an increase in oil, for instance, and then the increase in oil, it causes everything else to increase in price. So transportation increases. So the provision of services, the production of goods, it goes up. When the price goes up, consumers buy less. And when consumers buy less, companies produce less. And then we actually end up having an economic decline, which is a recession. That's one of the reasons. And then secondly, when countries see that they've got high inflation, they want to bring the inflation down because it erodes the value of money in the hands of consumers and in the hands of organizations as well. So they do this through fiscal policies, monetary policies that are meant to reduce that inflation. So what they do is they increase interest rates so as to decrease the purchasing power of the consumers. And then the consumers purchase less, and then, the inflation will come down as well. But if that policy is overdone, it will result in a recession, because if a lot of money is taken away from the consumers, what happens is now that consumers are no longer buying more products. When they are no longer buying more products, it means that the companies now are going to be forced to reduce production drastically. When they reduce production drastically, then you actually see that they have to lay off employees, they have to retrench people. And when those people are retrenched, they can't buy goods as well. So it becomes a continuous cycle in that respect. And then the last reason also that recessions happen, they happen when there's a panic in the financial markets, like the one that happened in 2007. So there were assets, and those assets were appreciating in value. And then there was credit which was being extended by the financial institutions. And then that credit companies and people thought, let's take advantage of this credit and buy more assets.
Yeah.
And then they ended up being overextended.
Okay.
When they became overextended in that scenario, usually they will start to fail to meet their obligations to be able to pay back those debts, and then they start to default on those debts and they can't meet their obligations. So what happens in that scenario is that when they can't meet their obligations, they have to cut down on consumption, that is the consumers, and corporations will now cut down on the investments. And that causes a decline in the economic activity, which actually leads to a recession as well.
Okay, so on this three reasons that you actually cited, I'm just thinking in South African context, we have seen interest rates going up. Is it maybe trying to cap the inflation, which if it's overdone, like what we're saying, can cause a recession?
Yes, it did. That's why now there's actually quite a lot of talk about recessions in the world.
Yeah.
Because the economies of countries have declined, including South Africa as well. So our Reserve Bank has actually increased interest rates 6 times since November.
Okay.
And the objective is to try to bring down the inflation, which is currently at around 7.5%, so that it comes back to the bracket that they want, which is 4 to 6%.
Yeah.
So when they increase the interest rates, they want to bring down the inflation.
Okay. So yes, you actually have answered one of my questions to say why currently people are talking more about recession, but you actually put it in the South African context. So why everyone? Because we see people even worldwide are talking about the recession looming and so forth and so forth. Why?
So the phenomenon that we're talking about is not only happening in South Africa, it's happening throughout the whole world.
Yes.
So in the US, in the UK, South Africa, and many other countries as well, inflation is very high. There are many factors which have driven inflation to be so high, like the war which is in Ukraine, the high oil prices, they are so high, and then it impacts on everything else that is produced within an economy. And to bring down the price of inflation, then the central banks of all these countries, they are trying to bring down that inflation through increasing interest rates.
Yeah. So which means I think currently, from what I'm seeing, recession is something that we can call a hot topic worldwide, looking at what's happening, the war, like what we're saying in Ukraine, which is causing a lot of, less supply and increase in prices for oil. So Romeo, I just wanted to find out why people are afraid of recession.
So there are many valid reasons why an ordinary person or even an organization is afraid of recession. Firstly, when a recession kicks in, the economists cannot tell us when it's going to end. Some recessions, they can be 1 year, others they can be 4 years. So it depends. So that uncertain time, it continues for a prolonged time. And recessions usually come with high unemployment. So people are fearful that they are going to lose their jobs.
Yes.
And also there will be turmoil on the financial markets, and the values on the stock exchange will be going down. Like currently what has happened is that the values on the JSE, S&P 500, they've been going down periodically or systematically since January.
Yeah.
And that happens as well. Now, when you have your pension fund and your investments in the market, you actually see that the value of your investment or your pension fund is going down.
Certainly it brings fear.
Yes. So many people are like you, many people are like me. They will be very afraid to say, when is the market going to turn? And they see their savings or their investments evaporate right before their eyes. So they will be very much afraid. And for business people, the biggest thing is that if the recession, it causes them to get lesser profits.
Yes.
And when they get lesser profits, they have to lay off employees and engage in all that admin, which is related to cutting costs.
Yeah.
That is if the business is going to survive. Most of them, they don't even manage to survive the recession. So they can end up being bought by another company. They can end up, filing for bankruptcy as well.
Yeah. Oh, so I think I can even imagine to say when profit decrease as a business person, as well as an entrepreneur, the next thing is to say, okay, you need to make a lot of decisions, lay off.
And
maybe,
those will be hard decisions as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So I can really imagine the fear that comes around a recession to business as well as to individual people. So tell me, how can business prepare for recession?
That is a very good question, Mollen.
Yeah.
There was a study which was done by Bain and McKinsey, and they came to the same conclusion that approximately 10% of the companies that survive a recession, they will come out stronger, and they will be the leaders in their pack, in their categories. And they found out that there's one reason which actually accounts for that.
Yeah.
And it is preparation.
Okay.
And preparation. So preparation
Planning.
is key. Preparing for the recession. So you have asked, how can a business prepare for a recession?
Yes.
So there are many things that a business can do to prepare for a recession.
Yes.
Firstly, they can do scenario planning, where they put various scenarios on the table. If a recession comes, where are we going to cut costs?
Yeah.
What is going to be our organizational structure? What are we going to focus on? What are we going to cut down on? And they do that simulation as well, so that by the time that the recession comes, they have already played it out and they know exactly what they are going to do. So they'll be better prepared to actually navigate the recession.
Yeah.
And then the second thing that companies can do is to use professionals to make sure that their financial well-being is very solid. They do have cash reserves, because in a recession, cash is king. Indeed, it is king. And the more cash you have, the more likely you are to survive a recession. So when you anticipate a recession, that a recession is coming, you must make sure that in good times you actually plan and you have cash reserves as well. So companies like Brandmore can help you to put your life in order and to make sure that your cash reserves are really good.
Yeah.
And also companies can deal with their debt. In good times, debt is very good. It makes you to grow your company. It makes you to really expand and be able to be profitable. But when it comes to a recession now, debt can be a serious burden that can strangle you and make your company to collapse. Because when the recession comes, the financial institutions still want you to pay for the principal amount. They also want you to pay for the interest amount. So if you have a large amount of debt, then it means that you are really not going to be able to meet your obligations, most likely, because now there is lower income which is coming through, and yet you have to make payments to the financial institutions. So studies actually show that companies that have lesser debt, they tend to survive the recessions, and afterwards they tend to also continue surviving afterwards. Yeah. And companies, entrepreneurs, during good times, there are many business models that people can actually engage in. Instead of having a department of accounting, you can engage consultants like Brandmore. You can have freelancers as well who can help you to execute on your mandate as a business. So that when a recession comes, you don't have a very huge staff count in your books. You can actually cut down on the work of the consultants. And that will be very, very helpful for the companies. Now, for the last point that I want to speak on this one, on how to prepare for the recession, is that you can actually diversify as a company. So in recession times, there are categories which are hardest hit by the recession. If you are in that category of service offering or products, then you can diversify into categories that are not hardest hit by recessions. So for instance, categories, products like toothpaste, products like medical supplies, baby products, those are not usually hard hit by the recession. And companies can actually diversify into something like that. Even for services, there are services which are not directly heavily hit by inflation.
Recession. So for me and for the viewers, of course, I'm seeing that this is the core preparedness for any situation that can happen within the economy, like, for example, or recession. So from my involvement, especially in the SME sector, people or business owner or entrepreneur, they really do strategic planning. So the scenario planning that you spoke about is something that is critical and fundamental for the business to be able to prepare for such times, because as business you just think everything is going to be well gloomy, like and everything is going to be good always. Hence when recession come, I think, I haven't done the study, I'm just going to ask for your opinion there. To what extent are SMEs, like small businesses, survive during recession? Because I know, as far as I've been playing in this sector, the planning part of it is very minimal. Hence, when things like this come, there's no preparedness, there's no scenario planning of what to do, and even the diversification that we speak about. What's your opinion on that?
So most the SMEs, when they start, usually they start on a shoestring budget.
Yeah.
They are living hand to mouth.
Yeah.
So when the recession comes, it requires them to have cash to survive.
Yeah.
And usually they won't be able to make it through the recession. And that's why you see that there is a lot of businesses that crumble during a recession. And it's sad to say that most of them are actually smaller businesses. But the phenomenon also happens with bigger companies that have a lot of debt. Those ones, they also can crumble if they are not careful on how they manage their finances.
Okay, so preparedness is very core, I believe, in any scenario.
Indeed.
You need to plan and you need to strategically think of today and future in all different scenarios within the
yes,
business.
It's you see the adage that says that if you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Yes,
it is very, very true. So businesses need to be agile and adaptive to the changing circumstances which they're operating.
Okay, let's get into the survival mode. How do you survive in recession? Let's say we are in recession. How can a business survive?
So that is a very critical question that you're asking. There is a rule which has been said by Rebecca Henderson from the Harvard Business Review. She says you must make sure that you do not crash the company.
What does that mean?
Not crashing the company, it means that you must not run out of money. You need to continue to have cash because cash is king. You need it during this time. So you need to do everything possible for you to conserve the cash that you have. If it means that you have to renegotiate with your landlord, make sure that you do that. If you have to speak to your credit providers to adjust the credit terms, you need to do just that so that you can be able to conserve those financial resources. But you know that sometimes organizations are tempted to lay off employees. Sometimes it's unavoidable in a recession because of the reduced output, reduced sales, reduced income. But as far as possible, it's always advisable to try as much as possible to reduce that. Because when the economy rebounds, you will need to rehire or hire, and then you need to train those people so that they can be able to perform optimally for your organization to compete effectively in the market. And those costs are usually not factored in by the entrepreneurs. So we always advise people to say, well, sometimes within the law, within the bounds of the law, make sure that you can agree with the employees. Maybe you can reduce the working hours. Maybe you can also encourage your employees to take extended leave, which is unpaid leave for extended periods of time. That actually helps you that when the economy rebounds, you can be able to absorb those people again. You don't have the hiring costs, and you also don't have the training costs. They can be able to propel your company to greater heights.
Okay, so can business start also innovating when we are still in there? Because I'm thinking we're talking about survival mode now, right? You can cut costs like what we have said. So like what you have just said, you can cut costs. Then can you innovate as well?
So as we said earlier, you need to be agile. And you need to be adaptive to the changing market conditions and to the consumer demand as well. When you look at a recession, it's not all doom and gloom. When you look at companies that have been birthed from the recession, some of them are iconic companies that we actually depend on today. You have General Motors, you have General Electric, you have Microsoft. You also have companies like Disney, WhatsApp, Instagram, Airbnb. All those companies were founded during recessions. So entrepreneurs can actually be innovative and look at the opportunities, changing consumer preferences, and make sure that they capitalize on that.
So I think that point has just made me to think that it's not all bad news. recession after all, because you are actually emphasizing companies that were actually birthed during recession times,
Yes.
which means it was an opportunity for opportunities for entrepreneur to rethink, to relook and innovate.
Yes, so you know, it's when you're looking at a half glass, some people will say it's half full, some will say it's half empty.
Wow.
So it depends on your outlook.
Very
at
profound. Yeah. So lastly, Romeo, let's say the businesses, some have like cash. Where can they invest in during recession? Because I know investing in investment is something that is very critical. Talking from my individual experience, like now I was looking at how my investment were performing. I was like, oh, let me put them out, because I could see them going down and down. Where can business invest during this period?
Okay, I think for starting from the last point that you mentioned, you know, the temptation for many people who are already invested in the market is to pull their investments from the market. By doing so, they're actually banking the losses. But they need to consult their financial planner. Usually it's more advantageous if you stay in the market, because generally after the recessions, the markets are going to also boom. But if you want to invest afresh, as you are saying, you will need to consult a financial planner who will look at your risk profile, and then they can be able to recommend things which are suitable to you, investment options which are suitable for you. Now, there are others that people can consider, like investing in an exchange-traded fund and low-cost index funds, which hold a basket of stocks or a basket of stocks which track a certain industry. Those ones, people can be able to invest in them. Those are actually better to hold than holding one stock, where in the event that that stock collapses, then you see you will actually your investments are going to vanish. So it's better to hold that. But also other investments which people can consider, it's bonds, because bonds usually they continue to pay some
secure.
Yes. We can say that it's relatively stable and secure. It generally doesn't deplete your capital, but also people can consider dividend paying exchange traded funds and index funds as well. So those ones will also be able to help them during the recession times.
Wow. Thank you very much, Romeo, for coming through and for the conversation that we have had. To our viewers, I hope you have found this conversation useful and helpful to you. And should you have found this content interesting, why don't you just hit that like button and subscribe to this channel, and don't forget to hit the notification button so that you don't miss out on all premium content that we're going to share on this channel. Thank you.